In 331 BC, a weapon that wouldn't exist for 2,300 years was about to end the largest empire on Earth. The Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander the Great versus Darius III of Persia. 47,000 Macedonians against an army of over 200,000. By every ancient measure, Alexander should have been crushed. But what if, on the night before the most important battle in ancient history, Alexander was handed weapons from the future? An XM7 rifle, fragmentation grenades, a pistol, a tactical drone, and landmines. What if he learned to use them, and what if nobody on the other side believed it until it was too late? This is the story no historian ever wrote. Before Alexander, Macedonia was nothing. A rough, tribal kingdom on the northern edge of Greece. The Athenians, the Spartans, the Thebans, they all looked down on Macedonians, called them barbarians, barely Greek. That changed with one man, Philip II, Alexander's father. Philip built the most disciplined army the ancient world had ever seen. He introduced the sarissa, an 18-foot pike that turned infantry into a wall of iron points. He created the Macedonian phalanx. He conquered all of Greece through war, bribery, and sheer ruthlessness. Philip unified Greece under Macedonian rule and planned an invasion of Persia, revenge for the Persian destruction of Athens 150 years earlier. But he was assassinated in 336 BC before he could march east. He left behind a 20-year-old son who had been groomed for war since birth. Alexander wasn't just a prince who inherited power. He was tutored by Aristotle. He studied philosophy, science, and geometry. He slept with Homer's Iliad under his pillow and modeled himself on Achilles. At 12, he tamed the wild horse Bucephalus when grown men failed. At 18, he led a cavalry charge at the Battle of Chaeronea and personally shattered the sacred band of Thebes. He always fought at the front, always first into danger. His greatest fear was never death, it was insignificance. He once wept because his father's conquests would leave him nothing great to accomplish. That restlessness, that hunger for something beyond the horizon, is what made him both magnificent and tragic. The hatred between Greece and Persia was 150 years old. In 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes invaded Greece with the largest army the ancient world had seen. He burned Athens to the ground and desecrated Greek temples. The Greeks never forgot. For generations, Greeks talked about revenge. Persian gold kept Greece weak by funding civil wars between Greek cities. Philip II was the first leader powerful enough to strike back. Alexander inherited that unfinished mission. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with 47,000 soldiers. He defeated the Persians at Granicus, then crushed Darius III himself at Issus. Darius fled so fast he abandoned his own mother, wife, and children. He sent letters offering Alexander half the empire. Alexander refused. He wanted everything. After conquering Egypt, where he was declared a living god, Alexander turned east for the final confrontation. Everything had been building to one battle. Darius spent a full year rebuilding his army. He gathered soldiers from every corner of the empire: Persians, Bactrians, Scythians, Indians, Babylonians. He assembled 200 scythed chariots with spinning blades, 15 war elephants, and his elite immortals, 10,000 of the finest soldiers alive. He chose the battlefield himself, the flat plains of Gaugamela near modern Mosul, Iraq. He had the ground leveled so his chariots could charge at full speed. Alexander had 47,000 men. If he lost, there was no retreat. His kingdom, his army, his legacy, everything would be destroyed. His generals begged him to attack at night. Alexander refused. "I will not steal my victory." That night, the entire Persian army stayed awake in full armor, expecting a night attack. They were exhausted before sunrise. Alexander slept soundly. His generals had to wake him. That night, something appeared at the edge of Alexander's camp. Crates made of materials no ancient blacksmith had ever seen. Inside, objects that belonged to no century Alexander knew. An XM7 rifle, angular, metallic, capable of killing from 500 meters. Fragmentation grenades, small iron spheres that could shred everything within 15 meters. A Sig Sauer pistol, compact, deadly at close range. A tactical drone, a metal bird that could see the entire battlefield from above. And anti-personnel landmines, flat discs you bury and forget. With them were instructions, diagrams, distances. Alexander shouldn't have been able to read them, but he could. He didn't ask where they came from. He didn't pray. He called his most trusted commanders, Hephaestion, Ptolemy, Craterus, Perdiccas, and said one thing: "We learned these before sunrise." This is where it gets real. These weapons were built for soldiers from a world of machines and electricity. Alexander's men came from a world where iron was high technology. The XM7 was the hardest. Loading the magazine took Alexander 2 full minutes. His hands, built for swords, fumbled with the bolt catch and charging handle. The first shot sent 3 veterans stumbling backward. The sound alone, the deafening crack, was unlike anything they had ever experienced. One soldier dropped to his knees thinking Zeus had struck the ground. Alexander kept his footing, barely. The shot went wide. He racked the charging handle and fired again. That was Alexander. You show him the impossible, and he does it twice. The grenades were simpler in concept, but terrifying in practice. Perdiccas threw the first one too short. The explosion showered everyone with dirt. Nobody was hurt, but every man there understood. These weapons don't care about courage or rank. They just destroy. Craterus hated the pistol, called it a coward's weapon. Alexander told him a weapon is only as cowardly as the man who refuses to learn it. Craterus didn't argue after that. But the weapon that changed Alexander completely was the drone. When it rose into the air and the screen showed the entire Persian camp from above, every formation, every chariot, every cavalry unit, Alexander went silent for 10 minutes. His whole life he had fought blind. Now he could see everything. He whispered, "I have fought my whole life in darkness." The landmines disturbed him, a weapon that kills without a human choosing the target. He called it dishonorable. Then he ordered them buried where Darius's chariots would charge, because kings don't have the luxury of clean hands. By dawn, 12 men had basic working knowledge of every weapon. Not experts, but enough. Darius had sent a scout named Verres to observe the Macedonian camp. Verres was no fool. 20 years of service, multiple campaigns, never reported a falsehood. That night, he saw muzzle flashes brighter than torches. He heard cracks that weren't thunder. He saw explosions with no catapult. He saw a metal shape rise silently into the sky and hover without wings. His language had no words for what he witnessed. Old Persian didn't have terms for rifle, grenade, or drone. He ran back to the Persian command tent and described what he saw. Iron tubes that spit thunder, metal eggs that explode, a bird that flies without wings. Bessus, the powerful satrap of Bactria, laughed first, called them toys, festival tricks. Mazaeus dismissed it. Tricks don't stop 200,000 men. Even Darius smiled. Verres tried once more. "I have served this empire for 20 years. What I saw filled me with a fear I have never felt on any battlefield." Bessus said, "Then perhaps you were too old for scouting." The room laughed. Verres was dismissed. He walked back to his tent in silence. He had done his duty, and the most powerful men in the empire had laughed at him. Dawn. Darius signals the attack. The scythed chariots charge, blades spinning, drivers screaming. They hit the minefield. The first explosion ripped a chariot out of existence. Then another. Then another. 30 seconds. The chariot charge was over. Alexander launched the drone. He saw the gap forming in the Persian center before the Persians knew it existed. The greatest tactical mind in history with perfect information. He charged his companion cavalry into that gap. His 12-man strike team opened fire with the XM7s. The Persian immortals, the empire's finest soldiers, fell without understanding what was killing them. No arrows, no javelins, just sound, flash, and death. Their shields meant nothing. Alexander rode through it with his pistol drawn, firing deliberately. A Persian officer charged him with a spear. Alexander shot him from 15 feet and kept riding. On the left flank, Craterus threw grenades into Mazaeus' tightly packed cavalry. The explosions were devastating. Horses panicked, riders flew from saddles. The entire flank collapsed in minutes. Bessus, the man who laughed loudest, was among the first to flee. Varhes stood near the baggage train, watching. He didn't run. His face showed something worse than fear. Grief. Darius saw Alexander coming through the smoke. He did what he did in real history. He ran. That night, Alexander sat in Darius's captured tent, surrounded by gold and silk. He held the rifle across his knees and said to Hephaestion, "At Issus, I won a battle. Today, I won something else, and I'm not sure it was better." He made a decision. The drone, kept. Intelligence is honorable. The landmines, kept for defense. But the firearms and grenades would only be used when his army faced total destruction. He told his men, "We are Macedonians. We conquer with courage, not with thunder." Babylon surrendered without a fight. Susa surrendered. The legend of Gaugamela traveled faster than his army could march. The fear of the unknown proved more powerful than the weapons themselves. Alexander conquered the Persian Empire, but those closest to him said he was different after that day. Quieter. He had seen the future, and the future had no soul. This story is fiction. Alexander won Gaugamela with sarissas, swords, and genius. No rifles, no grenades, just human courage and a mind that saw what others couldn't. But here is what's real. You carry more power in your pocket right now than Alexander had in his entire army. Technology, reach, influence. The question was never whether you could change the world. The question is what kind of world you'll build with what you've been given. If this story made you feel something real, subscribe, share it, and tell me in the comments, if you were Alexander, would you have used the weapons or put them away? This story isn't over. It's just beginning.